Well, good morning. Uh, Welcome back to Sunday school and welcome to the last week of our Finding God in the Lord of the Rings series. I know I said a whole bunch of stuff about it last week for those who were watching the video, but it's been a good series for me. It's been a lot of fun to go through for me, and I hope that you have been enjoying it as well. And as I said, next week we're going to start into something a little bit new. We're going to start looking at some spiritual development and prayer practices, some things you can go over, and we'll take the weeks in pairs as we go through. So that's where we are. It's sort of where we're going. If you are watching these videos, one, just a reminder, we are meeting in person right now as this video is being uploaded and played on YouTube for the first time. So if you're interested in joining us live, we would love to see you and catch up with you and spend some time and pray with you. If not, obviously you're free to stay and watch the rest of this video as well, or if you're watching this sometime later, then please by all means stay and hang out with us as we make our way through this last lesson together. Before we begin, I just want to take a moment to pray together and lift up our time together this morning. So wherever you are, whenever you may happen to be watching this, I hope that you will join in prayer with me. Lord Jesus, we offer you this time this morning. We give you the space that we are in, and God, I pray that however you may choose to speak to us this morning, that our minds might begin to glow with imagination, that we might begin to think of our own faith journey in light of what we're going to talk about today. May your Spirit continue to guide us and instruct us, and may everyone in our branch family here find blessings upon their lives today. Lord, we love you. We thank you for this time, and it's in your name that we pray all these things. Amen. So, because this is our last lesson, I want to acknowledge something before everyone. And the thing that I'm going to acknowledge is that I have been very intentionally avoiding a certain character in the Lord of the Rings series inside of our lessons, because this is one of the lessons that I've been waiting for and I've been planning for a while. And this very specific character is so prevalent of this theme that I didn't want to take anything away from them. And so the character, of course, that I'm talking about is Aragorn, a huge character inside of the Lord of the Rings, and specifically, inside of this whole series. And Aragorn's whole character arc is sort of set up for us in the very beginning, where he's this mysterious figure, and we learn pretty early on that he is the true heir to the throne of Gondor. He's part of this race of mythical humans that live longer than other humans do. And ultimately, Aragorn's entire character arc is about him moving and finally ascending to his rightful place on the throne. But what I really think the Aragorn story invites us to do is not to see our lives necessarily on an upward trajectory, but rather, I think what Aragorn's story is asking us to do is to view our life and to view our faith journey with the end in mind. And this might seem like, we're Christians, we talk about living life in light of eternity all the time, right? But that's not exactly what I'm talking about here. Because I think this idea of us getting caught up inside of living life in light of eternity is something that has been twisted and slightly misunderstood. And so what I hope to imagine with you this morning is this idea of what does it mean to live life in light of the end, or what does it mean to live life keeping the end in mind? And so the video clip that we're going to watch today is one of the very last scenes that we get in the Return of the King movie, where lo and behold, it's the title scene of the movie. The king has returned. And so I want to watch this, and then we'll talk about it and talk about some of the implications of it But I invite you to start imagining and start thinking some of these things as we watch this scene. Let's imagine our life and our faith in light of these things together.
Now come the days of the king. May they be blessed.
This day does not belong to one man, but to all. Let us together rebuild this world, that we may share in the days of peace.
Hanonle. My friends, you bow to no one.
There's so many good things and so many good connection points, I think, that can be said about that scene specifically, right? Like, not only has the king now returned, but taking us all the way back to the very first week that we talked about, the way that the king chooses to celebrate his own coronation is through the gift of song. which, as we saw in the very, very first week, is the way that Iluvatar, the god of this world, deemed that it should be created, that all things are to come into being through song, that they all have this musical note and this musical piece of them that is so integral to who they are, to who every, like, rocks and stuff, even to how it all exists. And so the king chooses to celebrate through song. You can tell that the imagery is very bright, symboling the light coming into darkness, the redemption over the very dark scenes that took place inside of Mordor. You have the king finally meeting and getting to receive um, his first and his true love together, and the king recognizing his own friends, his companions that are with him, and that declaration that this day does not just belong to one man, but it belongs to all of us, that we might continue to go and work and build in this world for peace. Like I said, there's so many connection points that we can make to this story, and especially as we think of the story in light of the end. And Aragorn is such an interesting character to watch as he goes throughout everything, being reminded that this is ultimately his end, but even starting to think about the characters that come into contact with him, and especially the kingdom of Gondor, right? Like, this is their end. Their king is going to return. There's going to be massive amounts of celebration that happen in the streets. I mean, like, this is going to be a really big deal. And maybe one of the best ways that we can start to imagine this is to start to imagine our putting ourselves in this position, right? Maybe we imagine for ourselves how this must feel, looking up and being a citizen inside of this city, longing and waiting for the true king, the true authority to be standing before us. This leader, unlike unlike any that we've ever been able to imagine before. He's mighty in war, he's wise in counsel, he's firm, but he's patient, he's tirelessly compassionate. He's not a politician or merely a candidate for your support, but he's a commanding figure, demanding loyalty and fealty. He's the embodiment and icon of everything you hold to be good and true and worthy of affection, yet is also an incredibly tender and merciful being. It seems as though you would want to lay aside everything for the sake of this one leader. You might, even in this moment, want to kneel before him, offer up your notched sword, and cry out, "Command me, O Lord." And this ideal of a king, this idea of the true king or the true ruler. I know this gets said a lot inside of the American context, but it's something that we don't understand. It's something that is so far outside of our reality because we have this inheritance of 250, almost 300 years now of tradition that has this disdain for singular rule and singular authority. It's something that's so distant from us, right? We start thinking about um right, the American Revolution, and how there maybe wasn't necessarily disdain for the crown at first, but that ultimately came to be the symbol and the centerpiece of their hate. Is, we will no longer be ruled by a crown, and you're not able to tax us, you're not going to be able to take things from us without accurately representing us. And this idea of a king is something that is very foreign to us, yet we also have a tendency to kind of lean into it as well, right? There's definitely something about us that leans into this idea of being able to have a singular ruler on whom authority sort of lives and dies, right? Maybe you think of the president as the person who is the most powerful person in the world, if you will. Or maybe it's a Supreme Court justice, or somebody who has this sort of kind of influence and supposedly is in this position of power that is unmatched or unlike anything else that anyone can have. And this is not just a theme that we experience in fantasy, or even a theme that we experience in politics, but it's a very religious theme as well, right? We read in the Psalms, this is Psalm 45, my heart is stirred by a noble theme as I recite my verses for the king. My tongue is the pen of a skillful writer. You are the most excellent of men. Your lips have been anointed with grace since God has blessed you forever. Gird your sword upon your side, O mighty one. Clothe yourself with splendor and majesty. And these royal psalms, they begin to invoke a picture of this king, right? They begin to evoke a picture of who could this perfect potential ruler be? Who is this one that will come and will rule things justly and honestly and fairly, and met out justice in the same way that he gives out mercy and grace? And maybe a passage like this, we start to think about a character like Aragorn, right? Who seems to sort of embody these ideals, who is this mighty one who seems to be clothed with splendor and majesty a little bit, who is this king, this most excellent among men, if you will. Or maybe your mind starts working like mine and immediately starts working and starts thinking of verses in the book of Revelation, right? We think of maybe a verse like Revelation 19, 12, and 16. His eyes are like blazing fire, and on his head are many crowns. On his robe and on his thigh, he has this name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And we start picturing Jesus Christ inside of this role. We start picturing Jesus Christ as this promised messianic king who is going to rule in the way that one is supposed to rule inside of the biblical ideal. And so I want to invite you to put yourself back into this scene again. Imagine picturing it. Imagine the glory and the splendor happening inside of Gondor. However, the only difference picturing the scene this time is that as you're looking up to the person who's being coronated, you can't tell who or what it is. This figure is veiled. You can even maybe picture they're like sitting on the throne already, and the back of the throne is turned toward us. And then I want to read to you, as we start to think about this figure, I want to read to you these verses from Revelation 5. Here's what Revelation 5 says. It says, then I saw the right hand of the one seated on the throne. And this is not our throne that we're talking about, but this is like God's throne. I saw the one seated on the throne, or I saw in the right hand of the one seated on the throne a scroll written on the inside and on the back and sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a mighty angel proclaiming with a loud voice, who is worthy to open the scroll and break its seals? And no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or look into it. And I began to weep bitterly because no one was found worthy to open the scroll or to look into it. Then one of the elders said to me, do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has conquered, so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals. Then I saw between the throne and the 4 living creatures and among the elders a lamb, standing as if it had been slaughtered, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. He went and took the scroll from the right hand of the one who was seated on the throne. When he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell before the Lamb, each holding a harp and golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. They sing a new song. You are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, for you were slaughtered, and by your blood you ransomed for God saints from every tribe and nation and language and people and nation. You have made them to be a kingdom and priests serving our God, and they will reign on the earth. Now, hopefully you started to pick up some of the words that are in here that seem to so very closely match this coming of this ideal king. The people start to sing a new song. Finally, the one who is worthy has shown up to rule. He's finally able to open up the scroll of judgment. He's finally going to be able to cast judgment on the things that need judging. He's finally going to be able to rule this world in the way that this world is meant to be ruled. And in fact, not only is he going to rule, but he's taken up saints from all people, every tribe and language and people and nation, and he's made them into a kingdom of priests serving God. All people, all everywhere are being brought into the fold of this person. And it seems as though the coronation is not simply just for this one, but now is being turned back around and is meant to be for all these other people. But I hope you noticed the big difference between the Lord of the Rings scene and between the scene that we read in Revelation 5. Because in the Lord of the Rings scene, you seem to have this ideal human, right? The most magnificent of men, if you will. But in Revelation 5, we get a very different picture. And I want to read again just this very small snippet of what John says. Then I saw between the throne and the four living creatures and among the elders a lamb standing as if it had been slaughtered, with 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. Now, this is a very different picture than what we might imagine is kingly, right? Not only are people not bowing down and worshiping a human, but they're bowing down and they're worshiping and they're giving praise and glory to a lamb. The small, little, feeble creature. But not only is this lamb just something small and feeble, but this lamb is one who has already been slaughtered. This lamb is already one who has died, if you will. And this lamb also has 7 eyes and 7 horns, which, you know, a little bit weird to picture literally, but then John goes and tells us, so this is the 7 spirits, the entirety of the Spirit of God resting upon this one lamb. And so we get these two pictures juxtaposed to each other. On the one hand, you have this figure whose eyes are blazing and are like fire, who has this name written on him, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. But then on the other hand, you have this slaughtered and bloodied lamb, this king who rules meekly and mildly. And there's something to be said about living our life now in view of the end. In fact, living our life now, as some theologians would say, as a parable of what the end will look like. And I think the way that we really understand the kingdom of God, the way that we really try and picture how is Jesus going to rule over this new creation, has a very big impact to play on what we do right now. And in fact, I think a lot of times, and this is something that I had mentioned earlier, but a lot of times we get so caught up in who is going to be inside of the new creation that we miss even saying, am I living in line with what I imagine the ending to be? Am I living in a way that points other people to the end? And so instead of this becoming a game of, you know, am I believing, am I saying, am I doing the right things? We start reimagining our life as saying, am I living life like the kingdom of God is not only here and now, but that people can see visibly inside of me? Am I living life like the king is sitting on the throne, is already reigning, both as this one who is extremely powerful and cannot be overtaken, but also as this slaughtered and bloodied lamb sitting in this vulnerable position, but yet who is deemed to be the only one worthy to open the scrolls of judgment? What should that tell us about the ideal king, the king that we say that we all worship? And what does that tell us about the way that we live our lives right now? Look, these are big questions. These are huge questions. And I don't want to, just give easy cop-out answers to you this morning, but rather what I want to invite you to this morning is maybe to start picturing what you think of when you think of the end, or maybe even beyond thinking of the end. This is the fancy theological word eschatology, by the way, which literally just means like study of the end. But maybe in, not even just thinking of the end, but thinking of the reign of the king, thinking specifically of the reign of Jesus, and start picturing that in your mind. Start asking yourself questions. What do I actually expect this to be like? What are the signs that are pointing me, that are showing me how this is going to be? And then start asking yourself the question, am I living life in a way that points to the reality of this king? When other people look at me, do they see this king on the throne, or do they see a very different king on the throne? How is my life gearing people towards anticipating and understanding what this end is going to be like? Because this is a big question that everybody wants to know, right? What happens after? And probably bigger than all the other questions, bigger than, what do I do now, or what's going to happen in the future, is ultimately what happens at the end. And we put our faith and we put our trust in the one who says, I am the Alpha and the Omega. I am the beginning and the end. I am the one who is making all things new. I am the one who is bringing new creation. And so we put our trust in that. But I believe that this invites us now to live our lives, not just in light of that, but as a parable of that, as something that points to the reality of that. So I invite you to ponder these thoughts this morning and ponder them the rest of this week as well. This is actually going to be the topic that we take up, not in a few minutes for Sunday school, but next week for our very last sermon in the sermon series, Mission Mysteries. So I encourage you to hang on to these thoughts and think through them and dialogue with them, and maybe spend some time really wrestling with it this week, and then we'll come back together next week and discuss this in a sermon. But hopefully this has started to engage your imagination in a new way, not just of your life now and not just of your life in the end, but how the two might relate and inform each other. So I want to just, as a very final note, say thank you again for joining me during this Sunday school series. This was about a 12-week series. It was a really long Sunday school series, but again, I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have. If you have questions or comments or concerns or anything, you can always find my email in the description of this video. It's the little box that's like right underneath where the video is. Yeah, you can find my email there, and you're free to let me know if you have questions, again, comments, concerns, or anything like that. And yeah, I hope to see you in just a few minutes for worship. But until then, blessings on you, and we'll see you soon.